Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024. I am Dan Rubin. Great show for you today. You know who's here. The Dean, Bill Kurelic, and the Grand Poobah, Mark Porter. Big week, coming off a bye. Everyone should be rested and refreshed. I know who else is. That's Prize Picks, one of our new sponsors. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. It is easy. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. For example, I think Jamar Chase will get more than 83.5 receiving yards next week. I think Marvin Harrison will get more than 25 receiving yards next week. Kyler Murray. I think Nick Chubb will run for more than 55.5 yards. Cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this football season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25%. To provide even more value for your lineups. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code Bucknuts to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the Prize Picks app today and use code Bucknuts to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. We're going to run these guys up here. Bill Kurelic and Mark Porter. Never ones to see a wager that doesn't appeal to them. Bill, have you recovered from your weekend? It was not what I would call a tour de force for Cleveland sports fans.
No, not quite. Friday night loss, heartbreaker. Saturday night loss, heartbreaker. And Sunday, the expected loss.
Achilles tendon broken. Good Lord. What an end to, and unfortunately for Browns fans, is Dave. Shocker. Dave wanted to discuss this yesterday, being the Bengals fanatic that he is. They're not out of the woods yet in Cleveland, so good Lord. We are out of the woods here. Everyone had a bye week to kind of get the Austin smell off of them, as it were, and does appear Ohio State emerged no worse for the wear on the national scene. Some very interesting games. Ranked fourth heading into the week. Big game against Nebraska. Maybe that game has changed a little bit in that Indiana went through. Good Lord, Indiana went through Nebraska like I don't even know how to explain that. I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's Indiana's largest beatdown ever of Nebraska, 56-7. And now Dylan Raiola and the boys will be coming in for a noon kickoff this weekend. We will have, obviously, all the recruiting vibes that come from that. Bill, as you look at the weekend ahead, I'm not sure where Nebraska fit in your preseason rankings on recruiting weekends. Where does it stand right now, and who are a couple guys we need to know about?
Well, it was going into the beginning of the season. Nebraska game was number 2 or number 3 in regards to the visit weekends. You can make a case for the Iowa game. You can make a case for the Nebraska game as being number 2 behind the Michigan game. And I think it's still going to be a very good weekend for Ohio State recruiting-wise. But as you mentioned, Dan, did not expect the Indiana beatdown of Nebraska like that. I expected Indiana to win as the season has gone on. We've seen Indiana as a pretty good team, but didn't expect that beatdown. Then you couple it with the early start time, the 12 noon start time. And that hurts a little bit because kids just have a hard time getting to a game that starts at noon that are coming from distance. So you put those things together, and it does change slightly this official visit weekend, but it's still going to be a good one. And I can just name 3 kids as to why it's going to be a big weekend. Number one, there are 2 official visits coming. Zaire Mathis, got to keep him in the class. He's committed to Ohio State for a long time, but has flirted certainly with Penn State, and Penn State has not given up recruiting him. Making his official visit, I've talked about this before, great call by the Ohio State staff. Keep the official visit with him till a in-season visit. Don't use it in June. And he'll be making his official visit this weekend, unless something changes, of course, which I don't expect. And then the other official visit is a guy they really would love to flip, Damola Ajadahan, the Georgia Tech offensive tackle commitment. And then the third reason that I can certainly say this is still a big weekend is that as of yesterday, Naeem Offord, the Ohio State cornerback commitment, is getting back to Ohio State. I talked to his father yesterday. He said that's still the plan as of yesterday afternoon. So unless something changes on that front, that is still on. So those 3 alone make it a very important official, or I should say a very important recruiting weekend for Ohio State.
Naeem Offord is going to have some eager eyes on him this weekend. Let's hope he makes that visit. This falls in line with the questions we got from the front row. We posted them up there. And the first question was, or the second one was, Bill, how much from Red Bull 88, how much better would this weekend's recruiting be if Nebraska was a 3:30 or 7:30 start? I think Bill just let you know there would be a bunch of dudes on there who might not be able to make it from elsewhere. All right. We're going to go through some questions.
Dan, let me add real quick to that. It already has changed it a little bit because Mikel Steffen, he is a very good running back, 2027 running back from Mississippi. And on Sunday, I talked to him again, and he said that the plan was still to visit Ohio State this weekend. It was going to be, and you might notice I said was going to be, his first ever visit to Ohio State. That was as of Sunday. On Monday, yesterday, he texted me and said, Mr. Kurelic, can't make it. Early start time. We just can't find a flight from Mississippi that will get us there in time. So it's already changed a little bit in that he had to cancel his visit. Again, Ohio State offered him a scholarship relatively early, guy that they wanted to get on campus for the first time. I certainly think he's going to visit Ohio State at some point, but it just won't be this weekend now.
Okay. Bill, Cam Sanford, Brady Edmonds is coming in as well, quarterback from out west. That would be interesting.
Now, that got changed.
Okay.
Unless he rechanged it, which he didn't tell me he did. He was originally scheduled to visit Ohio State for the Nebraska game, but because of some scheduling things, he made it to the Iowa game instead. And I did talk to him. I think it was on Saturday, maybe of this 3 days ago, whatever. And he didn't tell me of any change that he is coming back again to Ohio State this weekend. I'll check with him again today. But he came in for the Iowa game.
Good to know, because Brady Edmonds could be next after Tavian St. Clair in terms of big-time commitments, but we will keep an eye on that. All right. Like I said, we asked for a bunch of questions from the front row, and just because I want Mark to feel like he's earning his keep here, we're going to start with a question for Mark. This comes from Fox 2001, and this is a football question about the squad. Mark, Denzel Burke got picked on repeatedly against Oregon. Oregon's coaches claim they felt he was too slow, which seems apparent in hindsight. Is that performance something we can fix by coaching? Should the coaches have given him safety help? Should the coaches have subbed him out? So we could at least have seen Jermaine Matthews in there when Denzel was struggling. Ultimately, the loss, Fox 2001 puts it on the coaches. Do you see it as a coaching or a player issue? I get that we lost by 1 point on the road to the number 1 team in the country, and all of our goals are still ahead of us. But Burke's performance was glaringly bad and needs to be corrected, don't you think? Mark, the floor is yours.
Yeah, that's a big question for one player there. I'm one of those guys, you don't throw out the bathwater or the baby with the bathwater. I mean, he was a highly rated player by NFL people before the season. I think we were talking about him as a high draft pick. What burnt him were stutter moves. Both of them were a double move, and he bit, and if he doesn't bite and he just stays in his over-the-top coverage, I think he was over-aggressive was the problem. I mean, his assignment on those plays were he was cover 4, he's over the top. There's no need for him to be jumping or biting at anything. He's not that. It's not that type of role for that coverage. He wasn't in a press man-to-man where they ran a guy right by him. Now, Oregon saying we know he was slower, maybe slower than the receiver he was facing. Maybe you had a burner that almost every corner is a step slower than, and that's where the guy you took advantage. But the mistakes came on his double moves. And one of them was a quick little inside slant move that he kind of kept flat-footed on, and he wasn't ready to turn and run. He wasn't in a turn and run mode either time. So if we micromanage those mistakes and say, do you pull them out of the game? Do you change coverages? Those are sort of like first day of practice, like, hey, play with your eyes, don't bite on this stuff. We see that again, that over aggressiveness and the wrong coverage. Now you're starting to talk about this question has teeth to it. Like,
yep.
Put Matthews in, let's check this kid out. Let's see what he's seeing. I mean, he's probably at the end of the day at fault for trying too hard, for wanting it too much and thinking, oh, this guy's about to break on a dig. He's about to break on an out. And he stopped his feet, which is the cardinal sin back there when you're over the top and you have no help over the top. So that's the way I saw those two mistakes break down. And it's tough. It's tough to watch mistakes like that break the entire defense. When you screw up on the edge on the corner, there is no one else to save it, and it looks horrific. And the next part of it is Matthews is a good enough player that he should probably be in some sort of rotation anyways. He should probably get his series or two or, have his day out there because he needs to be ready in case there is an injury or something. But I don't think there's anything the matter with that. And if this is a type of performance that maybe kicks in to start one of those, rotations where everybody's getting a piece of the pie now, not the worst thing developing somebody like Jermaine Matthews.
Fox 2001 has a question for Bill. And Bill, you answered some of this, but this is a little more detail on Naeem Offord. Getting him back on campus. How far will this go to negate his other visits and keep him committed? Do you know if Offord has any other visits planned before the end of the season? Let's take that one for us.
Well, much to perhaps the chagrin of Ohio State fans, I think it's going to go all the way to signing day. Personally, I don't think Auburn or Oregon, possibly Alabama, are going to stop recruiting him between now and then. Colorado has shown interest relatively recently. I just don't think that's going to stop. And I know there has continued to be confidence on the Auburn side of things that they eventually can get him to flip. But the more things go awry there, I think the less chance that is. But we'll see. Maybe they turn things around on the field too. But I don't think it's going to end anytime soon, to be honest. I think even with a great visit this weekend, I'm not sure I would expect him to just come out and say, I'm shutting everything down. I just don't. In this day and age of the NIL, that's a little bit even more rare than it used to be.
Well, really, which wouldn't make any sense from a leverage perspective if they're trying to get the, last dollar in there. So that makes sense. All right, Bill. Question from One Bad Buck. Did we even try to recruit the 5-star offensive tackle that just committed to Michigan, Andrew, and I apologize if I mispronounce his last name, Babalola?
Well, Ohio State never offered him a scholarship. I don't know that, if it doesn't even get to the scholarship offer, then there has not been a real serious interest. So without that offer taking place, I just don't think that it was ever anywhere near a realistic possibility that he was going to Ohio State.
LG VanTresco. Hope I pronounced that correctly. Again. Mark, who do you think wins the Division I high school football championship?
When I saw that question, I'm like, why is that such a question? There's usually a clear-cut favorite. And then I looked at the rankings, and I'm going to share what I've seen up there. Menor is the only undefeated team in Division I right now at 9-0, and they don't feel like the one that's been running the table like the powerhouse that they usually do. This year, they're kind of on the comeback from some losing last year. So they look like maybe the possible winner out of one of those regions. But as you look into the other regions, Kettering-Fairmont is 7-2, Westland is 8-1, and Centerville is 6-3. And those are the top three teams in that division. Doesn't scream powerhouse, mowing down people, clear favorite. When you look at Region 3, Olentangy Liberty 7-2, Olentangy Orange 8-1, Pickerington Central 7-2, and Gahanna 7-2. Looks like a lot of cannibalization. I'm sure these teams are playing each other, knocking each other off. And then certainly in Region 4, Archbishop Moeller 8-1, Westchester Lakota West 8-1, Princeton 7-2, and Winton Woods 8-1. So we don't have someone who has put those 42-0 scores up, mercy ruled people with the undefeated season. So I guess that's the question. I mean, Moeller probably, has the most complete team, having seen their, showcase this spring. But this is really anyone's battle in Division I. This is probably the year where I saw Lakota East early in the year, and I thought they make a nice team in the playoffs. They're 6-3. They've lost 3 times. So I might not have seen the state championship team yet. I know I'm going to see Menor, where there's a couple players from Menor we need to check out. So I'm not sure if they're head and shoulders above everyone else. But if you're not head and shoulders, it's hard to say in Division I what's going to happen, because it's just a meat grinder of talent in that, division.
Put me down for I am pulling for Fairmont and quarterback Brock Baker. My son is a senior in high school at Oakwood. Brock is one of his AAU buddies from growing up, literally one of the best kids you'll ever meet in your life, to the point he might be one of the nicest kids I've ever met, to the point my wife was kind of surprised he's good at football because he's so nice, and he's very good. Fairmont runs. He's a quarterback, so I'm not sure how many looks he's getting for college, because Fairmont throws the ball like 4 or 5 times a game. But they're having a great year, beat Springfield, and he is the leader of the squad. Great senior class. So that is me putting in backing up Brandon Nichols here.
Talk about a great you talk about the big schools, Mark, and I don't know. Did you mention Lakewood St Edwards?
I did not mention them because they
have a huge game Saturday. Eli Lee, Hoban's linebacker, he's not going to the high state game Saturday. He's going to be kind of busy.
Yeah.
Lakewood St. Edwards plays Akron Hoban on Saturday. What a game that would be.
St. Edward is 5-4, and that is shocking.
Yeah. But still, there's going to be some talent on the field, Hoban against Lakewood St. Edward.
I plan to be there.
When was the last time St. Ed's lost 4 games in a season? How many games they've lost in the last 3 seasons? Is it 4 total?
It's just one a year, and it's not been the state championship game in most cases.
And St. Ignatius is 1-8, and they were, I think, 1-9 last year. I mean, the world is flipped on its end. Yeah, it just doesn't make sense right now.
St. Ignatius being 1-8 in football. The first year I spent in Ohio long term, they were the defending national champions. Joe Pickens and the crew in '89, for those of you with losing hair on their head like me. All right, I want to let you know of one of our sponsors we're excited to have. I know Bill was super psyched we got them on board, and that is Cornbread Hemp. Great deal for you guys you can get. If you're looking for a healthier way to enjoy a carefree moment, you have to give Cornbread Hemp a try. They've created the first ever USDA organic THC gummy that's 100% legal for anyone 21 and above. Again, 100% legal for anyone 21 and above. Cornbread's gummies have 10 milligrams of THC per gummy for just the right dose. Dave Biddle called me at 1 o'clock in the morning the other night telling me it was just the right dose. Perfect for taking the edge off without making you feel anxious or paranoid like other cannabis edibles. Furthermore, Cornbread does not use any synthetic ingredients at all. Again, if you're looking for a healthier way to enjoy a carefree moment, you got to give Cornbread Hemp a try. the first ever USDA organic THC gummy that's 100% legal. As a special offer for you Bucknuts Morning 5 listeners, get 30% off your first order. Just visit cornbreadhemp.com/Bucknuts and use promo code Bucknuts at checkout. Again, that's cornbreadhemp.com/Bucknuts and use code Bucknuts for 30% off your first order. Cheers to a healthier happy hour. All right, gentlemen. Bill. LJ VanTresco's on fire here. Do you see anybody joining the 25 class that we're not hearing a lot about right now?
Well, first I got to tell a quick story about I'm pretty sure LJ VanTresco.
Okay.
My wife and I were doing miniature putt-putt golf, and I believe, if I remember right, LJ introduced himself to me. He said, I'm a Bucknuts member and all for many years and all, and we talked and everything, and it was very good meeting him. And then the other reason I remember that day was as we got done, we took a picture of my wife and I with our two grandkids, and their parents took the picture. And while we were taking the picture, they notified us, oh, by the way, my daughter-in-law said, we got number 3 coming. And that one is going to be born actually probably early March. But I do remember that day, LJ, because I met you and I found out I was getting a 3rd grandchild from that set of parents. Actually, it'll be grandchild number, gosh, bad when you start having a hard time remember. 7, I believe, coming.
I was going to say, every time
5 right now, so that'll be 6. And then I got another daughter and her husband that they're having another child too. So that'll make 7.
So pretty much anytime you're in public and someone introduces themselves to you, your kids are going to have another kid. So that's great.
I kind of think that's the take from that story. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Now,
the Kurelics are multiplying like rabbits. Go ahead, Bill.
Getting back to the original question about, I think it was about surprise possible additions to the class from the 2025 class. And that's the one question you were asking about, right, Dan?
Yes, please.
Okay. I wouldn't say that's out of the question at all. Usually we think of, well, after the first 3-4 games, Ohio State may offer somebody new from that particular class. They see him as a senior and all. Sometimes it does take longer that they find somebody they like. And I'll give you a good example. A year ago at this time, Gabe Van Sickle was a Northwestern commitment. And a pretty solid, a relatively solid commitment. He wasn't actually going out and looking around a lot. He took a little bit, looked a little. But Ohio State liked what they saw of him during the season, and it was late. If I remember right, Gabe Van Sickle was offered a scholarship. I'm pretty sure this is accurate. Offered a scholarship at the beginning of November, the first week of November by Ohio State. So they saw him late, liked him late, but didn't necessarily saw him. They were keeping an eye on him, but he performed well enough throughout the season that he got a late season offer. He then made an official visit to Ohio State the weekend, I think, of November 10th. And then he ended up flipping his commitment from Northwestern to Ohio State. So it does happen late. That's not the most common situation, but you can't rule out the possibility of them seeing somebody that they really like, especially on the offensive line, that they decide they want to try to flip. And he does. So I think, maybe that does happen this year. We'll see.
Keep in mind also, we are far from done with the season. Lot can happen. Staffs move and such. So commitments can get changed. And we've all seen the way things have gone in this era that don't count on. There's some things you can count on. One thing I say you can count on is there'll be someone in this class probably right now that we don't even know about right now. I think that's pretty much, I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but it's very likely. All right, Mark, question for you from LJ VanTresco. Did you watch the Texas-Georgia game? Did you see anything that Georgia did on defense that our defense should do? And that is, besides go into a time machine and offer Jalen Walker and Michael Williams partial ownership of the shoe. Go ahead.
Did not see that game. So that kind of helps. And I saw some highlights. I saw the quarterback, controversy a little bit there, but Yeah, I didn't really dial into that. Once I saw the score and I saw that there were no undefeated teams left, I figured that was good for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, so I think I can answer that. That was as impressive a performance by a defensive line as you're going to see. When you think about, we talked yesterday about, and Dave and I talked about wanting more violence out of Ohio State's defensive line. Maybe if Jalen Walker and Michael Williams were on our team, we'd get that. They aren't. So it's going to have to be more of a group effort.
Hey, Dan, also going back to what you said just a minute ago about there are changes, a lot of season left. Think about the change a little bit, how we were talking about Alabama 5 weeks ago, say 6 weeks ago. They were just recruiting like crazy, and they had moved up to number 2, and actually they're still number 2 recruiting-wise. Their season got off to a pretty good start, and we were talking about Kalen DeBoer and what a fantastic job. Things have changed down there in Tuscaloosa a little bit recently. Some people I've seen people say, wouldn't Kalen DeBoer have been better off just staying at Washington, where he was totally entrenched, happy, and things were going pretty darn well? Things can change relatively quickly during the football season.
Okay, we're going to go back and hit the questions here in a minute. So we'll get to all that. LG VanTresco's last thing was, Dan, since your Cowboys are having a rough season, I'm saving you a seat on the Packer bandwagon. Hope to see you soon, LOL. Oh, good Lord. I told everybody this weekend I had a remarkably easy weekend. My heartbeat was smooth. Everything was good. And then I realized first time the Cowboys and the Buckeyes have been on bye on the same weekend in a long time. And that was revelatory of a childish personality that I have. And I really thought to myself this weekend, I put way too much into these teams. But ain't changed anytime soon. I'm too old to change my tricks. All right. Let's go back and hit a bunch of these questions from our wonderful users here. So give me a chance. Mike Schaefer. I think a lot of people want to know this, Bill. With Oregon establishing itself as OSU's equal atop the Big Ten, I think we could argue that. What are the short-term and long-term impacts on recruiting? Bill, let's just say it like this. I think it's fair to say that Oregon is now, we talked about the third team that we thought would replace Alabama in the Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State triumvirate of recruiting. It could be more than 3 teams now, but I know Oregon will be a part of it.
Yeah, and just the fact that they joined the Big Ten meant that there was going to be more competition. But now that they've actually gotten some guys like Trey McNutt. I mean, they got him to pick to commit to Oregon, an Ohioan. The stakes are higher than ever between those two schools, and it is absolutely is a real recruiting rivalry now between Ohio State and Oregon. And they also have the wherewithal, Nike, to go out and use the NIL very much in competition with Ohio State. So, yeah, absolutely. Ohio State, Oregon is now up at the top, one of the top rivalries and competition on Ohio State's recruiting board.
Yeah, I don't know this to be a fact, but I have a theory on this. I don't know if you've noticed that, and I'm sure you guys probably haven't, but Nike has dropped several NBA players from doing their signature shoes. And if you look at how much it costs to pay one NBA player, you could have a nice NIL package for Uncle Phil out of that money. And my guess is Phil has decided that he wants Oregon to win a championship before, they make a movie about him. And Ben Affleck can star in that too. But I think that Oregon is probably not going to lose any NIL battles that come down to the almighty dollar anytime soon. Like, at all. So I think their money's being spent there in a specific manner. And I heard Dan Lanning sign off from one of his press conferences to the media, and he said, if you know any good players, tell them to come to Oregon. So that guy is I've been impressed. Hopefully we can take him out. All right, let's go back here to some more of these questions. Mika Hanna, keeping us honest on Ohio recruiting. This is for Marcus. Have you seen Jamarcus Weiss? And his little brother, too, is going to be impressive. Do you have thoughts?
Yeah, we saw him against Alter early in the year.
Hold on a sec. Tell us who Jamarcus Weiss is, where he goes to school, etc.
Jamarcus Weiss is from Trotwood Madison, defensive tackle. Regarded as about, I don't want to say undersized, but around 6 foot, 6'1", probably the perfect size for that inside defensive tackle. But I think because we've been watching him since his freshman year, he probably burst on the scene when he was 5'10" or 5'11". So that kind of has people living in the past. But seeing him recently, he looked bigger and more stout than ever. In that body of compactness, he is explosive. BB Landers was one of the comparisons where he gets off the ball and he'll camp out in the backfield, the opposing backfield very easily. That's his strongest thing. I think he is one of those Offord candidates. I don't think on the national board he will outsize some of the guys that Ohio State's looking at. There may be some 6'4", 6'5" national prospects on the defensive line that may have to come off the board first. But when it comes to Ohioans, he may be one of the most highly ranked interior guys. And he's very productive in high school, of course. That explosive nature in high school usually leads to some pretty impressive highlights and some pretty dominating performance, and you can put him in that bucket. Have not seen enough on his brother yet to say if he is the heir apparent or going to be better or worse, but I will keep an eye on that. I know he's a younger player.
All right. A lot of talk about Ohio State's defensive line needing to pick it up, especially in retrospect after watching the Georgia defensive line, although one user does point out that was really more of a Texas not being ready. Eric Turnbull. Georgia had 11 sacks before the Texas game, 7 in that game. I don't dispute that. And, boy, Texas has a pretty highly touted offensive line. If you look at the mock draft, both tackles have gotten into the first round there. So we talked about Denzel Burke having a tough game on a national stage and affecting his draft stock. That probably didn't help the Texas duo there. But I'm not sure there's anything tougher than blocking Georgia at night in a big game on the edge. Those guys are superheroes. Go ahead, Mark. You going to say something?
Yeah, I mean, this is the second kind of question we've had about us getting pressure on the quarterback. And the thought that hit me like a wave is I remember when, in the summer when we got JT Tumaloau and Jack Sawyer back and we paid them to stay. And I thought to myself, wow, you're not going to have to pressure the quarterback if you have two ends like that. Essentially,
scheme, you mean scheme?
Yeah, you're not going to have to scheme up pressure.
Rush 4.
Yeah, we're going to be in rushing 4, and that means you can play so much behind it that's fun, and that just has not come to fruition. That front 4 pass rush has not been suffocating. It hasn't been, apparent, and that's really what I think we paid for. I mean, I think that money was spent for that type of atmosphere coming off the edges, and it's the hardest thing to do in sports, have edge rushers. It's the hardest player to find in the NFL. They're all dying for pass rushers. So it's not, unique that we can't get there, but at Ohio State with what we're paying, those guys should get there. Now I saw the other question. We should just send heat at the quarterback. And, some of the zone blitzes we're seeing on tape are more 4-man rushes with guys dropping out, and you're kind of keeping that 4-man rush scheme. You're never really getting into that 6-man overload or 4 off a side, trying to catch a free runner and really rolling the dice. And, even the coverage that Denzel Burke's being, torched here for, he was, off the ball. It wasn't press man-to-man. It's not like Knowles is rolling up guys and press man-to-man, cover 0, bringing heat, and these corners are getting beat. This was your garden variety kind of zone pressure where, like I said, he fell in the double moves. But the more I see these questions, the more I'm wondering, we got to get this pass rush going, especially if we see them again. Now, when you're away and the home field advantage affects the pass rush. Okay. When you can't hear, you're getting off the ball late. You're not as And that split second is maybe the difference between getting home and not getting home when you're, playing at Oregon and the crowd's really not there for you. I don't know on defense. We need to see more out of those guys.
Hollywood Hager, here we go with the caught in the moment theory. Did you see Mississippi State versus Georgia game? I'll handle this one. Yes, I did. And I think you're implying there that Georgia didn't play as well against Mississippi State and then played better against Texas. Yes, but we didn't get the better against Oregon version of Ohio State. So that doesn't apply there. Those guys, I get that they may have not been geeked for Mississippi State and Georgia played them closer than usual. But their guys, when they went to their Oregon game or their Texas game, they crushed. So I don't think it's applicable. If those guys have the ability to raise their level of play for the bigger games, our guys need to prove they can do that as well. Bill, what do you think about this? There's a commitment watch put in for Oregon for Brady Edmonds. Does that surprise you?
The surprise would be, Oregon's recruiting him. They've offered him a scholarship and all that. The surprise to me would be that I did not see who put in a commitment watch for him to Oregon. That does surprise me that somebody put that in.
Hold on a second. The fact that it's commitment watch leads me to believe it's not a 24/7 contributor because we tend to use the word crystal ball, but go ahead.
Yeah, there are no crystal ball picks for him to Georgia from 247. In fact, there are only 2 crystal ball picks for him by Blair and Gulu and Greg Biggins, who are our West Coast guys. They have him crystal ball to Ohio State.
Oops, that's my fault. Whoops. All right. Any update on Marquise Davis? Either one of you guys can take this. This is, of course, the running back committed to Kentucky that we are told Ohio State has still had a word in with. William?
Now, he ran wild just in his games, Pat. He set a state record, I think, for was it touchdowns, Mark? Do you remember?
No.
He ran wild this past weekend, had a fantastic game. I believe he's over 300 yards. Still committed to Kentucky. Still not actively looking at Ohio State. I think some people think that he will not sign with Kentucky, that he may be Michigan. But I checked on him about a week ago, and he was still relatively solid to Kentucky. But again, in this day of the NIL age and all, you just never know until it's all said and done. And now it's not necessarily when they sign, it's when they show up on campus.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Brandon Nichols, when was the last time Fairmont had a D1 recruit? I don't know the answer to this. I know the head coach, former head coach, Andy O'Rockery, played defensive end at Miami of Ohio. I don't think that's really what you're looking for there. It looks to me like Mark is hitting the database to try and get you the answer, and we will come back with that when we can.
Dalton Gusweiler.
Print. He's got his glasses off. He's into the 1940s.
Dalton Gusweiler went to Western Michigan in 2023, so that was pretty good. To go back a little further, yeah, there he is, Dalton. And he was a big, mean fullback when we watched him a couple of years. I think Bill and I were there to see Alter versus
Fairmont,
yeah. And
big
he
one.
had a great game, and they won that game largely. He was player of the game. So
Yep.
There you go. Dalton's the guy.
I'm pretty sure that Fairmont's had the edge in that rivalry. They share a stadium, and that's good stuff. Oh, it's the
by the way,
a song bomb from our former colleague who now works for the other team.
By the way,
Edmonds.
Marquise Davis. I said that I think he had 8 touchdowns. He did, in fact, he did have 8 touchdowns on this past weekend, and a mere 400+ yards, 450+ yards rushing.
Who'd they
But
play?
I saw him when he was a junior. He had 330 yards rushing, and I thought that was unbelievable. So
that tells me they want him to be Mr. Football more than they want him to be healthy. Like when you're playing a team that lets you give up that kind of yardage, that many touchdowns, and you don't pull the running back, you're sending him for Mr. Football status.
How many fourth quarter carries did he have? That's what I want to know.
Oh, my gosh, yeah. Yeah, I mean.
If he had more than one.
8 touchdowns, I mean, that right there is 64 points. I mean, the mercy rule and the clock has to be running. I mean, so if you're pumping up that kind of yardage, Bill, who was that against? Just out of curiosity, does it say?
Not sure who they played this.
I got to believe
they don't want it out.
Yeah.
Don't tell anybody.
I need him on my fantasy football team ASAP.
All right, Mika keeping us honest again. Do you think there's still a chance we offer Nathan Bernard? I hope so. Great arm, much improved moves, really well for his size.
Having just seen him 2 weeks ago, and I think I said this when I saw him, I believe he started the game 0 for 8. So I hate to, like I said, I have had a rough year covering prospects. I have not caught anybody on their best night. I have not caught the best weather. I have caught the injury bug. I've caught the mercy rule. And when I caught Nathan Bernard, yeah, he started off against Mansfield Senior 0 for 8. Then he did bust off an 85-yard touchdown run and then throw a touchdown on the next possession. So it all, the ship was righted. But I did not get the greatest taste in my mouth. And I came from an off season of really liking him and his training videos and seeing him in person and his size. His speed is off the charts for a big kid. He really runs well. I mean, if he was a tight end, he's a Travis Kelce or one of these upper echelon tight ends that can really run. The quarterback motion, everything, I don't know on the national level if he's what Chip Kelly's going to pick over. He'd have to go over him to get some of these other guys. It's going to be tight with Nathan Bernard. I would say it's going to be a camp performance that would have to put him over the top. When you see him in person throw, you walk away a lot more impressed because you can feel the power and see the power. I don't know if that comes away on film. So look for this to be a storyline that plays out to the end of summer.
And we will be following it. Good to know that there's always a quarterback from Ohio that's going to get some interest. Let's see if we go. Last 2 questions in here. Let's see if anyone snuck one in. Here we go. Cam St. Prix. Bill, you had a story in yesterday's paper about a running back from Alabama, Pike Road, also where Quinshon Judkins went.
Mikael Steffen, yep.
There you go. And by the way, I went to look. He must be very good because there are about 2 pages of pictures professional on the site on the AP. So that must be – Pike Road must get some serious fanfare down there. But we digress. Is Turbo Roger still planning an official? I believe his first name is not actually Turbo, although that would be impressive by his parents to know that ahead of time. I think it's Anthony, and I believe he's verbally committed to Alabama. And I believe he also talks frequently to Carlos Lachlan, which isn't good for Alabama. Bill, take it from there.
Yeah, and Carlos Lachlan is from Alabama. He's from Montgomery, Alabama.
There you go.
And they have long had Carlos Lachlan has been recruiting him forever. I think since he was in about 8th grade. And the plan is for Anthony Turbo Rogers to make an official visit to Ohio State. Would not be surprised if that one perhaps waited. He's going to make an official visit to an Ohio State game, and they've got a few good ones coming up. Indiana's actually a good one now. And then, of course, the team up north. So, yeah, his plan is still to make an official visit to Ohio State.
Update on Bo Jackson. He's done for the year. He will not be winning Mr. Football, and he will be coming to Ohio State and with a little bit less tread on his tires. Hollywood Hager lets us know Cleveland Heights ran it up on Euclid. Those 2 towns are pretty close by, so that strikes me as a neighborhood pee-wee run-up score. So, God forbid you get in between the Euclid, Cleveland Heights. By the way, Travis Kelce, I think I already said this, Cleveland Heights quarterback, as Mark mentioned earlier. All right, I'm going to let these guys go. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Mark. And if you guys are still here, I want to tell you about Mando. And I'm sure you've heard me talk about Mando whole body deodorant at this point. It's a great product, and I highly recommend it to you guys. If you're like I was and you've been using the same deodorant for a long time, it might be time to try something different and better. Mando was created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. Mando is American-made. It controls odor for up to 72 hours. That's a long time. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. Luckily, I have a discount code to help you get hooked on my favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with your exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code bucknuts.com at shopmando.com. shopmando.com /Bucknuts. Have a good one, Bucknutters.